Well, hello everyone. Thanks for attending. My name is Ryan Manook. I'm a solutions consultant here at FileMaker, and I'm really excited to be your host for today's webinar. Emery Brown, Senior Technical Project Manager from Platinum FileMaker Business Alliance developer DB Services, will join us to share his favorite tricks and tips to help boost both yours and your users' FileMaker 16 experience. But before we get started, let's cover a few brief housekeeping notes. So for the best experience, it is strongly recommended that you participate in this webinar with at least a broadband connection. And if you have any problems or require online assistance at any time, please contact Citrix Technical Support at 888-259-8414. Now, throughout today's presentation, you're going to have the opportunity to type in and ask questions. So let's talk briefly about how to do that. Just go to the control panel, click on that question section, enter your question, and click on send. And we're going to try to answer as many as time allows at the end of our presentation, but remember, you don't need to wait until then to submit a question. Now, the release of FileMaker 16 is barely a month old, and it's getting a ton of great feedback. Some of our most highly regarded developers are calling FileMaker 16 the biggest release since FileMaker 7. And Emery's going to be referencing the different FileMaker 16 products in this presentation, so let's quickly discuss the moving parts of the FileMaker platform. So you create and design your apps with FileMaker Pro or FileMaker Pro Advanced, and this is the desktop software for Mac or Windows. When you're ready to share your apps with your teams, you host them with FileMaker Cloud, and that's an offering through Amazon Web Services, or you can use FileMaker Server to host your custom apps on-premise. To run your solutions on iPad and iPhone, use the free FileMaker Go app available from the App Store, and to access your solution via a browser, use FileMaker WebDirect technology that is available as part of FileMaker Server. Now, it's also important to note that the FileMaker has an extremely focused roadmap built around the key strategic areas in front of you that help keep the FileMaker platform relevant and competitive. This roadmap allows us to offer building blocks for the future while providing powerful tools in the present. So let's dive into FileMaker 16 and allow me to introduce Emery.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to join you. Thanks for the great intro, Ryan. So today is going to be all about FileMaker 16. Whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out, FileMaker 16 brings new features that you'll use every day to build more scalable, secure, and mobile custom apps. Personally, this is my favorite release of FileMaker, and I've never been more excited to get my hands on a new release. The reason being is things not possible or only possible with maybe a third-party plugin are now not only natively supported, but they're quick and they're intuitive. FileMaker 16 is the same file format as the previous version, so it requires no conversion or migration to use your existing apps. That means that you have no excuse to be not using FileMaker 16 today. So today we're going to look at what I consider some of the most exciting features for the FileMaker platform. There's 9 features in total that we will go over, and I'll split them out into beginner, intermediate, and advanced tips. So the beginner tips will be more focused to maybe someone who's a newcomer to the platform or who doesn't develop on a regular basis. The intermediate tips will be things for those who have a couple of years of experience or perhaps are trying to take their development to the next level. And then I'll have some advanced tips and tricks that seasoned developers who are building custom apps every day, doing the hard stuff, will be able to take advantage of right away. So whichever group you're in, FileMaker 16 has a lot of exciting new features that will benefit the apps you're building. We'll walk through the basics of how to use each feature that we talk about today, and then we'll hopefully inspire you with some use cases, a lot of live demos, and some tricks that are not obvious when just looking at the feature out of the box. Keep in mind this isn't going to be a complete list of new features. There's just so much in FileMaker 16 that there's no way we could cover it in a single session. Many of the demos that I go through today will be using a FileMaker 16 solution called FM Quickstart. This is an out-of-the-box FileMaker template that's designed to just help you quickly start customizing and have a starting point. It's designed and supported by us here at DB Services, and it's available completely unlocked for free at fmquickstart.com. Obviously, you're going to need FileMaker 16 to interact with and develop on this fully unlocked app, and the reason being is almost every screen and every script uses the new FileMaker 16 features. So let's jump right into some tips and tricks. The first thing you'll notice when opening FileMaker 16 is the new control window in layout mode. This layout objects window shows a hierarchical list of all objects on screen and offers many powerful controls to quickly find and modify those objects. So it doesn't really matter if you have 3 fields or 100 on the screen, you're going to get immediate mileage out of this feature. If the layout object tree is not shown, you can click on the layers icon right next to the text icon, the text formatting icon, and that will open up the window. All right, let's jump right into a demo and take a look at how this works. So I've got FM Quickstart up here, and I'm going to go right into layout mode with developer access. And you'll see right here, I get the inspector, and now I also have the layout objects tree window. Again, if this window was not open or you had closed it, you can reopen it from this layers icon right here. So on this, we have a hierarchical list of every object that's on the screen in the order that they are stacked on the layout. So objects that appear in front are at the top. So this AppleScript button is way at the front of all the other objects. So let's take a look at a couple things you can do with the layout objects tree. If you're looking for an object or field on the screen, this is going to be your best friend. You can find the field here. So let's say we wanted to find this container logo field. You can click it. FileMaker will highlight it, and you can even go ahead and start modifying it in the inspector once it's been selected in the layout tree. Another cool thing you can do with FileMaker is if you have a lot of stacked objects, you can quickly manipulate and change objects no matter where they are in the stack. So here I have this card, and it's actually locked, but there's a bunch of there's a portal, there's a bunch of fields on top of that portal, labels in front of those fields, so we've got a lot going on here. And what I can do with the layout object tree window is simply right-click on the rectangle and just say hide objects in front. Clears everything off. Those objects still exist, they're simply hidden, and now I can modify and work on this rectangle. And when I want to show all in the layout object tree, I can go up here and click on the eye in the top right, and it shows everything again. So that's a really great way to work with fields and objects in FileMaker 16. The other really neat thing you can do is select objects inside of a group. So let me give you a quick example. You can see here in browse mode, we have this filter on the dashboard, and it's kind of a select user filter. Now maybe I want to change the placeholder text on that to say filter user instead of select user. When I go into layout mode and I highlight this object, I find out, lo and behold, it's in a group, so I can't actually change this placeholder text. Because you see here, I've selected the whole group. So what you can do in FileMaker 16 is you can expand the group here with the little drop-down arrow, and you can highlight any objects inside the group and then go ahead and change their attributes. So now I can select the placeholder text, and I can go ahead and change it to filter user. We'll go back into browse mode to test that, and you see there now it says filter user. So that's kind of the power of the layout object tree. You're going to use it all the time when you're designing layouts in FileMaker 16. The next beginner tip that I want to go over is the iOS animations. These give a wonderful user experience, and they're extremely simple to implement as a FileMaker developer. So available now on every go-to layout or layout navigation script step are mobile animations, and you can select from this list what kind of animation you want to play as your app goes from one screen to the next screen. So you can slide from the left or from the right, you can flip or do some zoom effects, and these give simple tools to create an excellent user experience, which is kind of in line with what the user's expectations are going to be when they're on their iPhone using an iPhone app or iPad. Let's take a quick demo of how these look. I'm going to pull up my iPhone here on using Reflector. Just going to pop it up here. I'm going to go ahead and open FileMaker Go and use Touch ID to access my application. This is actually our other demo. Let's hop over to the first demo. Okay, so you see here I have this iPhone app. This is all native FileMaker. This is actually screens from FM Quickstart. These are iPhone-only screens, but they are included in the application. So I've got the contacts list here of records. And if I want to go ahead and tap on John Doe right here, you'll see a nice little slide animation in from right to left. And if you didn't see that, I'll go back, quick tap on the list at the top left, and it slides back to the list. So you got a lot there. If I tap on the edit, I can also do a nice little flip to go into edit mode, and then cancel or click done to flip back. So you get this great user experience workflow that kind of explains the navigation through animation to your users. It's really easy to use. Let's go into scripts really quickly and take a look at how I did that. So I'm going to pull up the iPhone contact list screen that we were just on in layout mode on my desktop. And if I go ahead and highlight that button and take a look at it, it's a single script step, and it's just go to layout, goes to this contact read-only layout. But you see here now there's a new option here with go to layout where you can select the animation you want to play. Right now, today in FileMaker 16, this is only supported on mobile. So these are for your FileMaker Go applications only, and you can then select what kind of animation you want it to play. Simple but really powerful stuff. Alrighty, let's hop back into our presentation here. So the next thing that I want to highlight are the FileMaker card style windows. If you've seen anything about what's new in FileMaker 16, then you've definitely heard of the card window. There's a lot of buzz around it. If not, that's fine too. We'll take a look at how to set them up in the new version. So a card window is a window that's constrained and locked to the parent window. So the card has no Chrome around it, and it deactivates the layout behind it. There are multiple use cases for this behavior, and it's something that we see all the time on the web as well, this popped up window effect. So let's get a quick crash course on how card windows behave. They are locked to the parent window, so you move the parent window and the card will travel with it. On desktop, it does not need to be within the bounds of the parent, and I'll show an example of that, but you can do some cool tricks where your card window shows up outside of where the parent window is positioned. The card window is going to be a completely separate layout than the other window, and that means it has a separate context. This lets you do a lot of really powerful things like selectors or pickers. And then lastly, you can position the card windows with the standard FileMaker adjust window script steps to resize or move or reposition those card windows with scripts. All right, let's take a quick look. I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Invoices module, tapping on Invoices, and then I'm on an invoice here. And if I go to the Payments tab, you'll see I can click Add Payment, and that opens a nice little card window here. This is a dialog where the user has many fields that they can input data, and then what this is going to do is when I click Save, it's going to create a row. If I type things in here and click Cancel, then it doesn't create the record. But we get this nice card window effect, letting the user know that they're adding a payment. And the added bonus is they can, if you walk away from your computer and you come back, you can instantly see you're still in invoice 53 to PlaysWalk Central, so you can still get the context of where you're at while keeping the user in that modal environment. You'll see here if I move the parent window, the card window goes along with it, even though from a lot of different development standpoints, this is treated as a completely different window. Here's another example. One more example of a picker. So I've got line items here, and I want to pick from my products table. If I click Select Product, it's going to pull up a card window that's actually outside the bounds of the parent window. It's still constrained to it, but there's a lot you can do here. Since on desktop anyways, the card window doesn't need to be exactly within the parent window. Okay, so let's take a quick look at how these are set up. I go back to that Adds Payment button, and I click on the script. You'll see all we have going on here is a new window script step and a selected style card. So in this dialog, there's now a fourth option, which says document, floating document, dialog, and then card is the new kid to the block. This card window allows you to start on a new layout when the new window is created. It'll start on whatever layout you tell it to. That's also new behavior. And down here, it'll automatically size to the size of whatever layout you select. So in this case, it's 275 by 458, and if I leave these blank, it'll default to that size. But you can go ahead and customize these to whatever you want or whatever meets your needs. The other options we have down here in window options, this is expandable collapsible window options. You can have a close option. On Go, this means if the user taps on the grayed out area around the card window, it'll close. And on desktop, there will be a little X in the top left. And then you also have the option to either dim or not dim the parent window. Either way, the parent window is still not interactable, but you can have that option to dim or to not dim it. That's pretty much it. This is where all the magic happens in this new window script step. And then that window will have its own name, and you can script it to do whatever you need to do. Alrighty. So let's get into a couple of what I would consider more intermediate tips. So insert to variables is a new function that comes to FileMaker 16. And any insert script steps that could target a field can now also target a variable input. This includes insert from URL, insert file, insert text, which we'll highlight today, insert calculated result, insert current date, and there's a few others. In FileMaker, it looks like this when you specify the target of the insert. You can pick a field at the top, or you can go down and toggle to a variable at the bottom. This can be a variable, a global variable, or even a repeating variable, depending on your needs. So why is this feature important? So some of the major benefits of insert to variables are it allows scripts to utilize insert steps to execute independent of fields being on the screen. So instead of needing a field to insert your result to, in FileMaker 16, you can now just insert it directly to a variable. This reduces the fragile nature of those scripts, because in the past there always had to be a field on a layout, or you had to create a separate development layout that would always have the fields you needed on it and could never be removed. Some of the common uses of this insert to variable are going to be REST API calls. That's with insert from URL. We're going to take some more looks at that later on today. That's got a lot of enhancements with FileMaker 16. But insert from text can also be used to insert native code into the FileMaker calculation engine without needing to comment it out. And this is really powerful for things like HTML or CSS or AppleScript that will have certain characters that FileMaker calculation engine would recognize and need you to comment out in order to have that code execute properly. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. Okay, on this Quickstart dashboard, I've added an extra script, an extra button that's not part of the application just for testing purposes. This calls a single line of AppleScript, and when I tap on it, it shows this little notification, native AppleScript type prospect. So it tells me this little notification with a title bar. I click on it, it goes away. This is a native notification that will actually show up in the notification center of Mac OS. So let's look at the script behind all that. So you see here, I've got a couple lines of code, and I've used insert from text twice here. So the first part of the script, I do insert from text, and I can just type native AppleScript into this. This is a text box window, so I can put like a quote character, and I don't have to do a backslash like that because this is not the calculation engine. So I create the first half of the AppleScript, and then I'm going to insert some data-driven text from a field into another variable. And then lastly, I'm going to make part 2 of the AppleScript, which is a return character, and then I have some more AppleScript here. Again, I've got quotes, characters that would otherwise need to be commented out of the FileMaker calculation engine that I can just type in here. Super simple. Then I just go ahead and put all 3 of those together with a single set variable. I do each variable concatenated together, and then I execute my AppleScript with a calculation that just runs that variable. So this is a couple extra steps. Let me show you the alternatives. So FileMaker perform AppleScript in this example. All this kind of applies to HTML. I'm just using AppleScript as an example. FileMaker perform AppleScript actually does have a native text box window that you can type this AppleScript into. The only downside to this is once you want to have inserted values or data from your solution, like from a field or something, you need to make a calculated AppleScript, not just a native, because there's no way to put a field into this text input. So if you were to do that, which is the single set variable or the native calculation window, then you'd be working in the FileMaker calculation engine, and you can see here I have to comment out each of my quotes. I have to put a backslash in front of. Makes this a little bit harder to read, a little bit harder to comprehend, and quite a bit harder to write if I'm writing a lot of it. So that's where insert text comes in. I don't need either of these options. I'm just going to use insert text to build my variables, and you see here, instead of using a field, I've used variable down here, and I just did a part 1 variable. Let's go ahead and run that back one more time just so people can see it. So this is AppleScript, and this particular AppleScript runs the notification. It just goes to the notification center of macOS. Alrighty. So the next feature added to FileMaker 16 is PDF on server. This is a feature that seasoned developers will really appreciate. Prior to, only FileMaker Pro clients could generate PDFs, since server did not have a GUI interface. Over the past couple of years, FileMaker has completely redesigned the PDF engine and built it from the ground up, allowing the server to generate PDFs without any interface to render. So what this means you can now do is you can do server-side SMTP emails on like a schedule with a PDF attached. So you can automate the sending of a report. Maybe you want to see the sales for the week report every week on a schedule. You can do that now from server. It'll just send out that as an attached PDF. So that means you can have FileMaker layouts with charting engine and everything on it in that PDF and push that out on an automated server-side schedule. You can also do server-side PDFs for Android and custom web publishing. Both of these platforms do not support generating a PDF. So now in FileMaker 16, you can script generating the PDF on the server and then just deliver it to the user on their Android device or on their web browser. So it's really powerful. Okay, the next tip I want to talk about, this is one I'm personally pretty excited to test the limits of, because there's a lot here. The configure region monitor. This is a script step and a calculation, both added to FileMaker. It is an iOS feature which exposes the tracking location services to FileMaker apps. So it does this in two ways. The first one is through an iBeacon. For those not familiar, iBeacons are little devices that use low energy technology to essentially alert other devices when they come into proximity. So iBeacons can be placed on locations or in rooms or around areas, or can even be carried by people and create a digital way to detect a physical location. Last year at DevCon, the speakers each carried around a little iBeacon, and there was sort of a Pokemon Go game of collect the speaker. So each speaker has an iBeacon, and then the attendees had an app that could, just like Pokemon Go, it could tell you when you were near a speaker, and then you could collect that speaker. Or go over and talk to them or tap them on the shoulder or whatever. And it was just kind of a game to see who could find all the speakers who were talking last session. You can do all sorts of really cool things with iBeacons. I mean, even if you just want to see who came by and swipe the last cookie from the jar, you can now do that in FileMaker 16. Geofencing is the other option for monitoring locations. And geofence is essentially a radius around a point of geocoordinates on a map, so a latitude and a longitude. You can adjust the precision of the geofence, how big you want that radius to be in FileMaker. This is tracked with kilometers from the center point. When a device crosses the geofence, whether it's coming or going, you can trigger events. And the same thing goes for a beacon. When a device comes within a certain distance of the beacon or a radius around the beacon, FileMaker will trigger an event, and FileMaker will know if you are coming into the geofence or leaving the geofence, and both give you a little hook as a developer to run a script and perform an action. So the use cases for this, really the name of the game is automatically displaying contextual information. So some examples, you could pull up customer information when you arrive on site. You could pull up some security information when maybe you get to a certain site and it has specific parameters. Well, in FileMaker, you can detect when the device crosses that geofence and pull up a record that has that data in it, or that data sheet in it. You can even do so after arriving, since FileMaker knows when you're inside the geofence or not. It's working directly with the iOS location monitor services, and you can do a lot of powerful things. Okay, I'd like to demo the capabilities of geofencing really quickly. I've got a custom solution here, and this is a demo file that will be made available to attendees. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to pull it back up on my iPhone here. There's my iPhone. So I've got this location monitoring app, and what I have here is I have a start and a stop button at the top, and I've got two latitude and longitudes plugged in here, my home and my work. And all this app does is when I cross the geofence of home or work, it detects whether I'm coming or going, and it creates a little log that says you arrived and you left at this time. So this is kind of a fun one to play around with on your phone. Plug in two geocoordinates that you want to track, and then click that Start Monitoring button up here in the top right. you'll get a little notification that says it's now monitoring home and work. And I'm already in the work geofence, so nothing happens. But if I were to get in my car and drive away, it would detect that and create that. And the cool thing about this is FileMaker Go does not have to be on the active screen. You can actually shut it off or switch apps. So you could have your phone off while you're driving safely. And when you turn it back on and you go back to FileMaker Go, iOS will notify it that the geofence has been crossed. And even if you've gone in and out of the geofence several times with your phone off, iOS will tell you the timestamp of each time you came and left the geofence. So it's really powerful stuff. With this script step, we've really only scratched the surface of what's possible. I can't wait to see what use cases and unexpected purposes this gets put to by creative people in the community. Okay, I'm going to transition into a few final tips here that I would consider more advanced, and a lot of them have to do with web services integrations, API integrations, and the new functionality that FileMaker is bringing to developers to natively integrate with those platforms. So the first thing is the Crypt and Encode functions. FileMaker 16 added a whole host of encryption and hashing functions. I've got a list of them here on the screen. This set is very powerful and allows for secure data storage as well as secure communications with web services. Typically, integrating with a web service, there is a need to hash certain pieces of data for security purposes, and FileMaker 16 allows us to do this. So we've got some base64 encode RFC function that goes into the family of base64 encoding and decoding functions we already have available to us. Then we've got a new set of crypt functions. Crypt auth code is the one I'm going to highlight today. This allows you to use a binary HMAC hash to essentially take data and hash it into a fixed length string. This is used all over the place for password checking and password storage. And it's different from encrypting because a hash is sort of a one-way, what you can think of it as a one-way encryption. The data goes in and it comes out to a specific result, but there's no way to get it back from that hash. So what you can do is when the user types their password, you can hash it in the same way that it was hashed before you stored it, and then just simply compare the hashes to see if they typed the right password, since the same input will always have the same output, but no inputs will have the exact same output. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Before I do, there's encryption and decryption this is kind of a put your data into an encrypted format and then bring it back with a key. That is a two-way. Then there's also hex encoding and text encoding. So this is what the crypt auth code function looks like. It has 3 parameters: data, that's whatever data you want to hash, and then usually a user password. Then you have the algorithm, and I'll talk about a little bit about which algorithm to use. If you go back to the previous slide, you can see there's MD5, MDC2, SHA-1, SHA-224, SHA-256. There's a lot of different algorithms that you can use. And then lastly, the third option is a key. This is optional. You can use no key or you can include a key, and this further secures the hash by kind of changing the way that the hash is generated by mixing a key in there as well. You're always going to want to use a key for things like passwords. Now, just a quick note, FileMaker does return the data as a container. So if you want to then get that hash result, you'll be taking it out of a container field. So just keep that in mind when you're developing. So here's a couple of best practices when you're storing passwords securely with a hash. You do want to use SHA-256 over, you don't really want to use MD5 hash or SHA-1 hash. These are considered less secure. And the reason being is SHA-256 has fewer collisions, which is where different inputs have the same result. And that's sort of a security concern and a possible way to have your hash broken. You're also going to want to use a salt or a key, which are kind of 2 different concepts, ways to get to the same thing. Salting is when you take a string, a random string of characters perhaps, and you append it to the end of whatever the user's password is. This makes it more secure against brute force attacks. And then a key is a similar concept where you take a random string key. And the key here is you're going to want to use a unique one for each user. If you are using a password, you're probably going to want to have a unique salt for each user. There is, just a quick note, there's only a need to hash one time. Multiple hashes does not make it more secure. You can read more about that. if you research it online, but just a quick note there for people who are just starting out with hashing. Okay, the next set of functions debuting in FileMaker 16 are the JSON functions. FileMaker now has the ability to natively write and read JSON. This is another huge feature for integrating with web services, since most APIs use JSON as their primary or sometimes their only form of communication. So what is JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a commonly used language for REST APIs. The reason that it's so popular is because it's lightweight, it has smaller character counts than similar syntaxes, which include XML. It's much more minimal than XML and requires fewer words, and this makes it a more human-readable language. So here's a quick example. You can see that here that if we compare the same string in JSON or XML, XML is the first string, and then JSON is the second string. So that's what JSON looks like. It's got the squiggle brackets and the little quotes around the value, the key value pair. So there's actually one less character in this string, which can be huge savings across, if you have lots and lots of code, many records, you can get huge savings. 1 character per tag is kind of big. And then there's also one less word displayed, one less word on the screen. So it's actually a lot more human readable because XML has 3 words and JSON just has the 2 words represented there. So it's even easier to use as a developer. So let's meet the JSON functions. We've got JSON delete element. This removes a JSON key value pair out of a path or array of objects. You can format the elements, which is really helpful for data viewer. It adds all the white space you need to quickly see how your JSON array is laid out. JSON get element is your bread and butter for reading JSON from a path or an array. And then we can use the JSON list functions to list out the keys or the values. And then the last one, JSON set element, this is the function to generate JSON objects quickly. So there's going to be many uses for JSON when it comes to integrations. This is also one of the primary uses of JSON in FileMaker 16, in my opinion, is going to be to pass multiple script parameters. It creates a single kind of a single grammar syntax to pass multiple script parameters, and that can make your scripts a lot easier to read, as well as easier to move or copy between applications. So let's take a quick demo of how we've done that in Quickstart. I'm going to go ahead and use a script trigger that I have. So on every zip code field in this solution, we tie up to a quick web service API, and it just takes the zip code you type, and it'll spit back the city, state, and country. Before I show you the FileMaker code, I'll just show you the API. So we're using ziptastic.com, ziptasticapi.com, and you simply put in a slash and then whatever zip code you want, and it'll tell you the city, state, and country of that zip code. And this is JSON. This is a JSON set. So we have each key value pair. The key is country, the value is US, and then they're comma separated. And we have the next key value pair, and each key and value is separated by a colon. And then the whole string is wrapped in squiggly brackets, and that's called the object. So that's JSON really quick. Let's take a look at how we set the script up in FileMaker. So this is a script trigger on the field. So on object save, we run it through the web service, and the web service gives us back city, state, and country, and we just quickly populate it for the user so that they don't need to do it. So you see here I'm running this script. Any zip code, autocomplete the address. If I edit the parameters for the script, you see here I've built a nice little string of JSON. So what I want to do is I want to pass in the field names for city, state, and country. No matter where I am in the application, I just simply tell this script, these are the 3 fields that I want you to deposit the result into. And then as a 4th parameter, I pass in the zip code that the user typed. And each of these are compiled as a JSON set element. I'm setting them into a blank object. This is something you're going to want to use as a FileMaker developer, is to tell JSON that there is a blank object there rather than a null character. Null character will create errors at times, whereas this element is recognized as a blank element, a blank object. Then I have key value pairs created here with the set element function. There's 3 parameters: the name of the key, and then the value that I want to set it from. This is data driven from this particular field. And then I'm just specifying this is a JSON string There's a number of different JSON data types that you can specify, which is another really powerful hidden feature of the JSON functions. Okay, so once I've set up those script results, let's go ahead and look at the script. So I grab the script results at the top of the script, and I put them into variables with the JSON get element, and I just look for those keys that I've set, and then I grab the zip code as well. Then I'm using insert from URL, and this is targeting a variable, because we can do that now in FileMaker 16. So it's inserting it into a variable, and that'll get back the JSON from the web service. The URL I'm using, again, is just ziptasticapi.com/ and then there's the zip code appended onto it as a variable. So like we saw in the web browser, JSON is returned to us, so we use JSON get element, and we get it out of that JSON ziptastics result variable that was set in the insert from URL step. Pretty straightforward stuff. I then take those variables, and I set them back in the field using set field by name. Since I had those field names as parameters, I can simply set the results back into the field names. Pretty cool stuff. Ziptastic is a free API. It's free to sign up and use. Obviously, there are caps on how much you can hammer it, but it's a really great service. All right, so the last advanced technique that we'll look at today is the addition of curl options in FileMaker. This is an even more cornerstone feature for integrations, if you can believe that, than JSON or encryption. On top of that, curl also adds a lot of functionality completely outside of integration. So we'll look at some of that today. This is what curl looks like. It is a command line interface. So that option there on the left, that is the command that you put into the curl option. And it is a command line interface to execute different protocols. So curl stands for Client URL Request Library and is primarily for transferring data or files using URL syntax. Commonly used protocols are HTTP, FTP, and IMAP. There are more. These three are all supported with FileMaker 16. So curl in FileMaker is part of the insert from URL script step. This is where all the magic takes place. It is a configuration of that step. It allows a specific curl library of functions that FileMaker supports to be called, and this includes setting and reading custom headers for those API calls. Now, when you pass data to an API, there are headers associated with it, which are essentially, if you think about it like shipping, if you're shipping a box which has data in it, then the shipping label would be the header. It says where the data is going. It may say what is included in the package. It may have encryption information as well. Those are your custom headers. So curl is what you're going to use to set those headers on data that you send and read headers on data that is returned as a result of the API call. So curl in FileMaker, the major benefits are complex API integrations. Anything requiring a custom header is now possible in FileMaker Go and FileMaker WebDirect. Before FileMaker 16, these were not possible even through third-party plugins because FileMaker Go and FileMaker WebDirect do not have third-party plugins. Now, I'm sure a lot of advanced developers are all saying that, well, you can do this with Perform script on server. However, server-side plugins can have some issues as well, including some that I've run into is sometimes they don't support multi-threading. And in plain English, that means that when users are running your scripts at the same time on the server, their curl options are stored in the cache, and one user, if it's not multi-threaded, one user will collide, step on the other user's toes, and that can ultimately cause the plugin to crash the FileMaker server engine, which is not good. So at the end of the day, the curl options allow us to not use any third-party software to create complex API integrations. This is huge. I'm not going to demo that right now. I just demoed an API integration. I'm going to demo how to upload a file to an FTP with native FileMaker using curl options. I've got a little demo file here for the FTP upload. So this is I'm going to go ahead and close this out. This is a pretty straightforward solution. I simply specify the server. So I have an internal FTP site set up on my other computer. And then I put my username and my password in here. And then I can simply drag a file to a container and upload that to the FTP. So before I do that, let me make sure that my server is still up and running. I'm using FileZilla, which is a FTP browser, essentially. Let's go ahead and refresh this. So we're good. Our server is still up and running. And we can actually see here, there's just a single folder with this document in it, and it's called test on the FTP site. So this could be whatever your FTP site is. You can see all the directories there. So I'm going to go ahead and demo. We'll upload this FileMaker 16 icon. I'm going to just drag it to my container. There, it loads it in. It knows what the file name was. And we'll click upload. We get a quick success message. And then if we go back over to FileZilla and we refresh this, we can see, hey, there's the FileMaker 16 PNG was uploaded successfully. So this is pretty straightforward. Again, you have the server. What you can do is if you want to use other directories, you can type in here the directory path that you would like to take. So in this case, if I want to put it into the test folder, I simply go /test. I'll go into the test folder, click upload, and I'll go ahead and refresh this. So you see that the PNG uploaded into that subfolder. Let's take a look at the script that I'm using to do this. Very, very simple. I'm using 2 script steps. I have a set variable which loads the container field into the variable that contains the file. This can be anything. It can be a PDF, an image, a movie, another FileMaker file. You can put any binary file in there into that container, load it into a variable, and then use insert from URL. This is going to deposit the results into a result. Now, for FTP upload, you know, the result might just be a success message. I don't really care about what the result is. And then the other options I'm setting is I'm setting the target, the URL, specifying the URL. So this is going to be FTP://. Then I have the username, and I have a colon between username and their password. And then the syntax is you have an @ and then you have the FTP server IP address or domain, and then you have a / and the file name. And this is where you could have additional directory paths in there as well. So that's it. That's the URL. Pretty straightforward. And then the curl options are specified as the last option here. So if I click specify, you can see here all I need to do is say -t and the variable that I would like to upload. -t stands for upload file. And then I have a second curl option specified here, which is -s. And -s simply returns errors. If there are any errors, it shows those errors. And that's pretty helpful as a developer to be able to show errors to your users. So this is short curl notation. There's also, you can also type out the whole curl call. And I've done that here in the second step. Uncomment that. So you can see here, if I go to the curl options under setup, this is synonymous to -t. If you do /upload file, it's a little bit easier to read, but it's just longer to type. So upload file and -t are the same thing, and then show error and -s are also the same thing. A number of curl calls have that shorthand notation. You can go ahead and utilize that in FileMaker. The other cool thing that I'll note here is inside of this text string. So this is all just one text string here. These curl options, I've just split them out for easier reading. But this is all one text string. And inside of the string, FileMaker actually supports inserting a variable now without breaking the string up with the AND character sign. So you can do these inline variables on these curl calls, and that's really powerful stuff. Makes it a lot easier to write your code. Go ahead and, okay. So this is the other demo file that will be available to attendees, and I'll talk about how to get a hold of that a little bit later on. I just want to talk about one more bonus feature and one more bonus tip. I'd like to highlight that the FileMaker 16 server now has its own RESTful API. Just like FileMaker can integrate with other RESTful APIs using insert from URL, this allows other web services to integrate back with FileMaker, or your FileMaker app to integrate with another FileMaker server. You can learn more about this powerful feature on our website, along with many other features that we did not have time to cover today. So in conclusion, FileMaker 16 packs a huge punch for developers of all levels. These are just the things that we've taken a look at today. You know, the layout object tree, the JSON functions, configure region monitors. There's so much more out there. I actually was looking at some lists of top 10 features, and most of what we covered today, you know, my list of 9, a lot of those did not overlap other people's top 10, top 9 features in FileMaker. There's just so much, and so much people are looking forward and exciting to develop with. So if you want to get your hands on the 2 demo files I showed today, the FTP upload or the location monitor iPhone app, you can simply email a request to fm16-demo@dbservices.com, and we'll make those files available to you. Again, you can also download FM Quickstart from fmquickstart.com, and that is available for free. Simply go to the website, fill out the simple contact form, and download the file. If you want to learn more about FileMaker, we publish several articles per month about everything FileMaker, and these articles include a free demo file and a video tutorial with pretty much every article that we release. You can get your hands on those and see a whole bunch of other awesome things that you could do. It's a great resource. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan to talk about the community.
Thanks so much, Emery. Fantastic dive into the features and some really great insight that we can all use. Just again, excellent job. All right, so now is the time to start entering your questions for Q&A. Again, head over to that GoToWebinar control panel, click on the question section, enter your question, and click on send. Or you can just tell us what was your favorite tip and trick that Emery shared. We'd love to hear from you. And while you do that, let me quickly highlight the App Innovation section of FileMaker's free FileMakers community forums. So the App Innovations page, it's a great next step for you to follow up for additional tips and tricks. And it's a dedicated space for members to create, to learn, and to share the content and tools that you're developing, void of any promotion or services offerings. It truly is an area for us all to share and get better. And we also hold development challenges. So like right now, the best contribution through June 30, 2017, they'll be recognized during the DevCon 2017 awards ceremony. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the questions. And we'll start off with a Geofence question. So Emery, with regards to Geofence, if you're already within the Geofence area before starting the app, when you do start FileMaker Go, will the action you set associated with that Geofence location happen automatically?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me actually just take one moment to pull up the Geofence tutorial file that I had open there and take a look at it on the desktop. So the way the Geofence will work is you have to configure the Geofence, and then it's sort of an automatic notification. You can think of it like a on-timer script that's kind of always listening, and iOS actually notifies, the native iOS actually notifies FileMaker Go when the Geofence is crossed. And if FileMaker is in the background, iOS will wait till FileMaker comes back to the foreground to send the notification. And the notification comes in the form of a log. So if we want to take a look at what the iOS actually sends, I have this little log here in this file, this log screen. Actually, I saved it in the log file. So you can see here, iOS actually tells you the name of the Geofence, and then they tell you 0 or 1 tells you if you were leaving, 0, 1 is entering, and they tell you the timestamp. And if you do it several times before iOS has a chance to notify FileMaker, then iOS will actually send multiple instances back. And you can kind of parse through those as a developer. So what you use is you use the configure region monitor script step, and you set multiple parameters here, including what script you want to run when the Geofence is crossed. When my Geofences are crossed, in particular, I'm taking that region monitor events. I'm using the new function get region monitor events, which gives me something like this with the Geofence and what happened to it. And then I'm going through and parsing through that in this nice little script here, and creating records, or you could be doing, you could be pulling up records, you could be finding records. This is where you have full flexibility as a developer to do whatever you want with that notification. But every time, once you're monitoring, you can monitor up to 20 different ones on the same device. Once you're monitoring one of these Geofences, every time you come or go across the Geofence, your script that you specify is going to trigger. So I hope that helps with the question.
Perfect. The next question about FTP. Can you upload multiple files at one time, or only one file, or only one folder at a time?
So you can see in my demo that it was just the insert from URL script steps, so you could run several script steps in a row. In terms of uploading with a single insert from URL script step, I actually don't know the answer to that question. But if it was something that curl could do and it was part of the FileMaker curl library, then absolutely.
Great. Next question about card windows. Emery, are card windows supported in WebDirect?
That's a great question. Card windows are not supported in WebDirect. So what you can do to make your solutions WebDirect compatible or compatible with clients who are maybe still in 15 is after you do the new card window, in WebDirect or older versions of FileMaker, it will still create a new window. You just won't see the card effect, and you also won't get that automatic start on a new layout context. It'll be kind of more like the traditional new window step where it creates a new window and it's in the same layout that the old window was in. So on WebDirect, if you want to make your solutions WebDirect proof, you can simply do a new card window, which will show up as a card window on 16, and then just do a go to layout afterwards to make sure you're on the layout that you want to be on. And then from there, you could resize it or continue on with your script.
Excellent. The next question, in the realm of JSON, is there a function in FileMaker 16 to build a JSON array?
Yes, the JSON set element allows you to insert elements. You can insert strings or already built arrays into other arrays of objects. So that set element actually allows you to do a lot of different things, but ultimately it does let you create arrays of JSON data.
Perfect. The next question, Emery, do you have any experience working with RFID tags? And if so, are there any benefits, or what's the comparison between that and working with iBeacons?
Unfortunately, I do not have experience working with RFID tags. I do know that iBeacons work very similar to Geofences. You have the iBeacon UID or UUID, and you can detect when you come within a certain number of meters from that iBeacon and pull up a record or, execute a script.
Okay, can you talk about what happens to notifications with FileMaker Go and iBeacons if you've put the application in the background? What happens when you open up FileMaker Go and the device has received notifications while it was asleep?
So your script will simply run when FileMaker Go comes back to the foreground. Whatever script was supposed to run will run, and then if inside of that script you are getting the region monitor events result, if you're getting that log from iOS, you will see the name of each beacon or geofence that was passed by, and you'll see the timestamp when the device crossed the geofence, and you'll see whether they were coming or going. And you can look at that log and parse it out and do with it whatever you need to do.
Awesome. And can you give us some information on how they can obtain demo files from you again?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just back up here a couple of slides. You can email. The email address is fm16-demo@dbservices.com. We'll be happy to send you download links for both demo files if you reach out and submit a request to that email address.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Sorry we couldn't get to everyone's question, but on behalf of Emery, on behalf of DB Services, on behalf of FileMaker, it was our absolute pleasure chatting with everyone today. Definitely hope you learned something, and definitely hope to see you on another webinar soon. Have a great day, everybody.